everybody, how's it going? It is Tropic here, and really excited to have an amazing conversation with Gabriel Kurman, who is the co-founder of Rootstock, co-author of Circular Economies book, and we're going to dive into some really interesting things and exciting things that are happening within the Bitcoin ecosystem, but of course, not just online and all the amazing things that's happening on chain, but also how it's impacting people locally, the impact, the real impact that Bitcoin has on humanity. We're going to dive into that. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. And here we go. Gabriel, how are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Taj. Thanks for the invite. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So you are doing some amazing things within the Bitcoin ecosystem, which I'm really excited to dive into because a lot of our audience might not even be familiar with that. But first and foremost, I want to say that one of the things that I like to say on streams or even on spaces is that the meaning and purpose of Bitcoin tends to be, I guess you'd say, filtered through the local lens of how people are interacting with their local communities, what problems they have, and then Bitcoin kind of fits into that. So depending where someone is in the world, you might get a different presentation of why Bitcoin is really important. So first and foremost, before I toss to you, I just want to set that up. And those of you that are tuning into the stream live right now, share this out, have some friends into this conversation. And I would love to have this be put before as many people as possible. So Gabriel, my friend, as far as what's happening locally, why this was so important for you to get into Bitcoin, I'd love to hear a little bit about that because, like I said, many times we like to joke and say that Bitcoin is local.
Yeah. So I think what you're mentioning is like super important and driving force across Latin America. We have a very strong Bitcoin community there. Mainly started, or a big part started in Argentina because of the historical financial issues that we've had in the country for the last decades. Capital control, hyperinflations, uh, permanent fiscal deficits. So it was very clear to any Argentinian when we discovered Bitcoin that it could be really revolutionary and a technology that we desperately needed. So the perspective from Bitcoin, as you said, when you talk to someone from Venezuela, from Lebanon, from Argentina, from any country that has suffered the failures of the fiat system, is completely different from what you could get or think if you come from the US or Europe or a developed Asian country. So I would say that everything built during the last decade has been related somehow to this incredible technology that Satoshi gave us that can really help us build and program an open source financial system that works for everybody. The first thing that you learn about the fiat system when you start learning about Bitcoin is that the fiat system has clear winners and clear losers, right? When you have superpowers that can print money, have the rest of the world working for products and services in exchange for that printed money out of the air. You know that it doesn't matter how smart you are or how hard you work, this feeling that we're getting poorer over the year, we need to work more than our parents did and our great-grandparents did, and we're still not being able to buy a house or to have a future or to build a family. These kind of things were extremely clear for us in Argentina. And I think many of the projects that we will discuss today, La BitConf, the longest running Bitcoin conference in the world, it's been running in Argentina and Latin America for more than 15 years. Rootstock is the second layer to make a programmable Bitcoin sidechain. Bitcoin for Humanity, La Bitcoineta, the book about Bitcoin circular economies that you mentioned. All these projects have something in common, which is trying to use Bitcoin to build stuff that can empower people and help as many people as possible. Before Bitcoin, used to work in the traditional financial system. I'm an economist, and I've seen things in the traditional financial system that I thought that if we just replicate this with Bitcoin, then we are not changing much. You know, this gives us a huge opportunity to build a new economy and a new financial system from an abundance standpoint that can give better quality of living and freedom to everyone, or at least the same rules applying to the richer and the poorest. So we are all in an even playing field to build and to improve our own lives. So yeah, I think this is something that for being Argentinian and having been brought up in an extremely volatile financial system and troubled economy, we understood Bitcoin in a way deeper way than some other folks that only saw it as a store of value and a financial asset. And this is where our obsession and also strength to keep on building and to keep on innovating and thinking and creative ways to use this technology for good is coming from.
And I really like that. So a couple things that you touched that I kind of wanted to highlight. First and foremost, you know, a lot of conversations about Bitcoin being the store of value, digital gold, and so forth. But depending where you are, like you said, you have some unique challenges that you were facing in Argentina, which it was going to be make it a lot more attractive in certain areas, let's say like the US or Switzerland, for example, that those weren't the exact problems that Bitcoin solved for them. So the conversation is going to be a lot different than you'd hear from a speaker or even a builder that's from those markets, right? So that's why I'm really excited to dive into this. And a few things that you did touch was the humanity of it, because a lot of times we just start to speak about the tech. We start to talk about the finances and where this is going to go, generational wealth and so forth. And I feel like a lot of these conversations, that connecting point of how it is impacting lives and humanity is missed, because even when the news covers it, traditional media, it's always about the price of Bitcoin. And I feel like they're missing so much opportunity to really dive into how this impacts the world on a positive level. So you said a couple of things with those local events that were coming up, and how you had the largest Latin conference there, and it's in Latin America. I don't even think most people would even think of that. They probably think of the Bitcoin conference, which is going to be in Vegas and all these different places, because that's the one that's on the stage and getting the most media. But as far as what's going on in Latin America and all these things that you kind of dove into with Rootstock, I would love to hear a little bit more about how that is impacting you guys locally in Latin America, and how or why you're excited about this as far as building going forward and helping your local community.
So I think we are in a race trying to distribute as many sats as possible to the largest amount of plebs that we can. I'm convinced that we are separating money from the state and moving from this analog financial system where politicians can print as many units as they want, to this digital financial system that can be secured by cryptography. No one can modify. Will change completely life and humanity in the future, but it's not the same outcome that will reach if, let's say, BlackRock and the central banks and the governments can accumulate most of the Bitcoins, or if we do like a very hard last mile work and get as many plebs on board it as soon as possible. So I think this is what drove La conference that had been running for more than a decade, being the only Bitcoin conference when everyone was talking about blockchain, when everyone was talking about ICOs, when everyone was talking about private blockchains. We kept on pushing on Bitcoin conference, and I think it was very important for people to understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto and other stuff. Then La Bitcoineta followed exactly that same philosophy. We said, okay, La BitConf is very important. It goes to the different capital cities in Latin America, but how can we reach the people that cannot make it to our conference, that do not live or cannot travel to a major capital city? So we made all the content available online, but also we created these minivans called Bitcoinetas, which in Spanish it's a game word between a minivan and a Bitcoin. And this is an open project where anyone in the world can join us. We have a manifesto on our values, and that we only use these vehicles for educational purposes, that we talk about Bitcoin, that we do not promote any other asset. And this started in Argentina with the first one. Then we gave one as a present to Bitcoin Beach. They gave one as a present to Bitcoin Ekasi, also to Bitcoin Loxion. A couple of friends started a Bitcoineta in Europe recently. The Chilean Circular Economy in Chile launched their own Bitcoineta, which is incredible. Looks like a Scooby-Doo van. And now we have a new upcoming Bitcoineta in the Bitcoin Circular Economy called Kibera in Kenya, also with the support of Bitcoin Beach and the Fundación Bitcoin Iberoamérica, that always helps in the plotting and the cool painting outside. So it's a project that keeps on growing, where its main goal is to take Bitcoin education to the corner of the world. I participated in the conference in Chile last year, and they were very concerned about the advance of central bank digital currencies and the concentration of Bitcoin in only small hands because of the treasury companies and BlackRock and ETFs. And what I said was that I don't know how dangerous this concentration will be, or how aggressively they are going to push the Bitcoin, the central bank's digital currencies onto us. But what I know is that the best way that we can fight these problems is by building more and more Bitcoin circular economies, because it's this peer-to-peer network, the one that is going to protect us from central bank digital currencies, because we're always going to be able to send our sats directly without KYC, without the need to go through an exchange and a fiat currency. And also is the best way to dilute and distribute as many sats as possible with the people that need Bitcoin the most, is by creating circular economies, educating average people, and letting them know that Bitcoin is for everyone, not for rich people, not for people that have any particular technological or financial skills.
It's really interesting. A couple things there. I had no idea that it was the same project that got Bitcoin Akasi's vehicle all through Africa was the same project that was actually doing the same thing in Latin America. So that's really interesting, because that's one of my things that I love to follow, have notifications on, and I'm always looking to see where this van is going. To me, it's just really exciting to see the looks, especially when they go into towns where there's children, and the looks on their face to like see them interacting with Bitcoin. I think it's like, man, you know, a lot of times older folks, and the older I'm getting, it's we tend to look and get a little bit negative view of the younger generation. But when I see the excitement on these children's face in rural communities and wherever in the world, and they're Bitcoiners and they're excited about supporting their local economies, I mean, that really excites me and it gets me going. And so I'm really excited to hear that. But also, you know, you said that the circular economy aspect of it, which to many people that are under the Michael Saylor way of thinking, just hold your Bitcoin, lock it down, never spend it, that might sound like absolute blasphemy to those people. So I would love to, you know, dive into that, like the contrast of never spend your Bitcoin, only lock it down and preserve your wealth, versus what we're seeing around the world with all these circular economies exploding in Latin America, Southeast Asia, and in Africa. You know, that's just such a huge contrast. And, you know, when I'm in the different spaces, it's almost like two very, very different worlds. And it's like, it's hard to believe sometimes that we're talking about the same thing, which is Bitcoin, the core of everything, but the presentation of it is so different. So why circular economies is so important and how Bitcoin glues all this together, I don't think is necessarily something that a lot of people in the States or Europe or some really stable currency environments and countries really understand. So could you go a little bit more into that as to why you encourage people to spend their sats?
Yes, so there are multiple dimensions here that I think are worth analyzing. The first one is why Bitcoin circular economies are good for the people living in those communities, right? So this is from their perspective, and this is super interesting. When as I was talking to Herman, the founder of Bitcoin Ekasi this morning, we were interviewing him for the upcoming second book that we are launching. It's a work in progress right now, and is fully focused on African Bitcoin circular economies, because there's an incredible movement of communities building circular economies around Bitcoin in Africa. So we decided to dedicate a full book to analyze what's going on and explaining this particular movement to the ecosystem. And we were discussing how important it is for circular economies that visitors spend their sats. Imagine that these volunteers spend countless hours explaining these merchants how important it is for them to accept Bitcoin, creating these peer-to-peer markets, so their other members of their community, which might not be able to pass a KYC or not able to have a bank account, can use their digital cash directly without going through on-ramp, off-ramps, and spending a big chunk of their money in fees, right? This is especially important in Africa, as we were discussing with Herman, for cross-border payments. So many emerging markets, and particularly in Africa, they're completely disconnected. Traveling across these countries and moving money across them, it's incredibly painful, something that maybe someone from Europe or the US can have a hard time to understand. So using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange is really a game-changing experience for them in their local communities. Even for things such as security. We were talking with Herman this morning how it's not only the long-term appreciation of Bitcoin and the store of value narrative that they find immediately appealing, but it's more the fact that if they have cash in their pocket, they will probably have an older brother or a drunk uncle that at the end of the week will just make sure he takes that money away from these teenagers. So having a way to store those few bucks or whatever it is in a safe way that they can go back the following week and stays there, digital vault that allows them to save for the first time in their lives. This is extremely useful. It's something that is hard to understand for many people in the more developed countries. So also in the long term, will they start appreciating the benefits of saving in sats? That's where the time preference gets reduced. That's when they start dreaming in a better future, when they want to learn new skills, new languages. They start caring about their communities. They're protecting their lakes and their environment, because they're suddenly planning for long term to stay in their communities and not going abroad. That was the main goal for every single teenager in El Salvador less than a decade ago. And now you talk to every teenager in El Salvador, and they are all planning how to start a business or develop a career in their country, not migrating anywhere else. So this is one dimension, I would say, how circular economies are incredibly positive in so many dimensions and levels for their communities. Now, the fact that Bitcoin circular economies exist, they are popping up all around the world, it is also extremely important for Bitcoiners. Even if they are just using Bitcoin as store of value, uh, it is incredibly important for everyone using the network to make sure that we have a peer-to-peer network where we can spend our Bitcoins on our sats directly without the need to go through a KYC gateway. Because if you think about, we already had somehow sound, right? Gold is not as scarce as Bitcoin, but we've been using it for thousands of years. And we always had the same issue. It is so difficult to store that very rapidly you fall into the need of trusting a third party to hold that gold for you. And that's where all the problems have happened in the past. When you trust a third party, then this is the third party that the government needs to go and tackle if they want to take your gold. They did it in 1933 under Roosevelt's executive order. So if we are only using Bitcoin as a store of value and we are keeping that Bitcoin in a custody account of an ETF, then what's different between Bitcoin and gold? It's exactly the same. You can still send gold certificates through the internet. So it is actually the peer-to-peer network that is growing all around the world. And the fact that Bitcoin can be used as money and not only as an investment or store of value, that makes the Bitcoin network anti-fragile and creates this unstoppable force that it won't be able to be stopped, because eventually in the near future you won't need to go fiat currency to spend your sats. So I think Bitcoin circular economies are doing an incredible work for the network in general. They are the proof of concepts of how the future will look like. They are accelerating issues of scalability and improving the quality of our infrastructure. Like, they've been critical to the development of Lightning Network and different new wallets that are appearing in Bitcoin and Lightning. And they just make the whole network more anti-fragile, and eventually, in some cases, they can even be the proof of concept that governments and government officials see and inspire themselves to adopt Bitcoin at another level, such as what happened in El Salvador, that Bitcoin Beach inspired Bukele to foster the mass adoption of Bitcoin across the country. So eventually, I expect also these incredible positive social and economic development projects to inspire politicians to adopt Bitcoin in their countries. Imagine all the politicians and the countries suffering from the CFA in West Africa, where they are imposed over this currency printed in France that is being used to extract all the resources, when they could be using Bitcoin directly and liberating themselves from this colonialism financial system, or colonialist financial system. So yeah, definitely Latin America and Africa need Bitcoin the most. And I think what's happening in the Bitcoin circular economies, it's also helping every Bitcoiner in the world. So this is also one of the objectives of our book, is to inspire and invite Bitcoiners from all around the world to visit these Bitcoin circular economies, to be advocates of Bitcoin by spending their sats in those communities, not the sats that they are planning to leave to their children and children, but just converting the budget that they were planning to spend in those holidays into sats. And instead of paying with cash and being a cash advocate or a fiat advocate, paying with sats and being a Bitcoin advocate. Because something important to mention that Herman was saying today is that for a kid in a poor neighborhood in South Africa, having a foreigner coming with a different accent, probably from a country that they will never ever visit in their own lives, if they have the chance to jump in a plane at some point. But having this foreigner crossing, coming from all around the world, paying with it, showing up the same wallet and paying with the same money that the kid is using on a daily basis, is just so empowering, and it proves them that this is global money, that this is a global monetary network, and they are part of something larger than just their small circular economy, community, or country. So yeah, it's very important for the world that Bitcoin circular economy is growing. And in order to achieve that, we need as many people as possible visiting them and spending some sats supporting their work.
Really cool there. So a couple things as far as what got me excited about the idea of the concept of these Bitcoin circular economies. I've always seen these Bitcoin accepted here stickers and so forth being promoted online, and various posts of people saying, yeah, you should accept Bitcoin at your business. But for me locally, where I happen to live, I live in Jamaica. You can't tell by the accent because I spent most of my life in New York. But I live in Jamaica, and I saw a lot of the local tourism absolutely destroyed by these all-inclusive hotels. And just having conversations with Bitcoiners, they're like, you need to get local businesses to accept Bitcoin, because Bitcoiners are adventurous by nature. They're going to step off of the resorts. They're going to explore. They want to experience the cultures, get into to see, what the local food tastes like. So if you get those little shops and vendors accepting Bitcoin, Bitcoiners will seek them out. And I was like, wow, that was like my aha moment. And funny enough, someone recommended the book that you guys wrote. It was like, hey, check this out. They're doing some amazing things. You want some examples of how this works? Go check this out. So I got the ebook. So really interesting how all of this connects now. But and I had no idea that I'd ever be on a conversation with you doing this and streaming live and talking about these things. So I'm really excited about that. But as far as the KYC aspect of it, I think that's something that's often overlooked and underappreciated by people in the States. Because when I lived in the States, it was so easy to, open bank accounts, even borrow money. It's easier to borrow large sums of money in the States than it is to access my own sums of money locally here in Jamaica, which is absolutely crazy. It blows my mind to me. So, all around the world, like these things are happening where someone wants to expand their business or something. They go to the bank and they're going to ask them, why are you taking out the money? It's like, well, I just want to put an extra room on my, shop. You have to explain yourself and defend yourself for not being a drug dealer, scammer, or some sort of money launderer or something of that nature. And it doesn't really feel good. It's like, I worked so hard for this money and I have to explain myself to expand my business. Like, what? Then we have the aspect of the people in a lot of regions. They want to go to the States. They want to go to Europe. They want to go elsewhere. And it creates almost like a knowledge vacuum, a wealth vacuum. The most ambitious, the most innovative people are taking their talents overseas rather than helping locally. And then it creates like a perpetual problem in the sense that, like, there's a huge brain drain, as we call it in Jamaica. It's like a brain drain going. And then it's like, okay, we're talking about all these problems locally that need to be fixed, but the people that are most capable of fixing it or would be the most best in the best position to do so have gone abroad because they think that that's where they have to go. So tying all of those things together, it's really important to me and exciting to me that the same thing is being implemented all around the world, because Bitcoin really does offer a lot of freedom and stabilities in ways that people might not necessarily think about if they're only talking about the charts and so forth. So, but as far as like the rails of being able to do this, we mentioned Lightning, and at one point in certain circles, still Lightning's a little controversial, but generally speaking, these circular economies on running on Lightning and the innovations and the things that were built on the giants that came before them. But I would like to dive a little bit into Rootstock now, because that is another innovation that a lot of people might not be familiar with this as far as our audience goes, but this is very important and core to what's happening in Latin America and Africa and all these different places. So I would love for you to just kind of, on the most basic introductory level, tell us what Rootstock is and how it fits into all of those things that you mentioned, including circular economies, bettering local communities, and the human standpoint of things. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of Rootstock started in 2014 when we saw the white paper of Ethereum after knowing Bitcoin inside out. And we had a conversation with Nick Szabo, the author of the concept of smart contracts. And he was frustrated that Ethereum was going to be built, and the potential of smart contracts was being completely detached from Bitcoin. It felt pretty much like a traditional financial system, right? When you have gold, which was the financial anchor that got completely detached from the derivatives and financial system, the fiat financial system. So it was obvious to us that the future financial system should be built on top of Bitcoin. It didn't make any sense to have Bitcoin separated from a programmable financial system. And coming from Argentina, we knew also that Gold 2.0 was incredibly important for humanity, but it wouldn't solve all our problems. We needed microloans, we needed access to micropayments for people that cannot pass a KYC, because KYC is like a draw line. They said, okay, let's make these rules, and if 2 billion people around the world cannot pass them, well, so they are too small and too insignificant to be interesting for banks. So who cares, right? So we understood that the whole purpose of Bitcoin and what Satoshi gave us was to create a financial system that could serve 8 billion people, that everyone can participate with the same extremely low cost and accessibility and fairness and censorship resistance. Um, so this is how Rootstock came to be. It was just, how can we combine the best of Bitcoin with the best of programmable smart contracts? And why didn't Vitalik do it? No, and so I don't know why he didn't. I think he had to fundraise with a new token, and probably that's why he created Ethereum separately, because building a Bitcoin sidechain is extremely painful. When you're using Bitcoin as native currency, you're giving away the possibility of creating a new competitive token that competes with Bitcoin as the native asset of the second layer, which gives all the value from Rootstock to Bitcoin holders. But at the same time, it's very difficult to fundraise and to build those kind of technologies. But basically what we did was combining both technologies. And actually this is a very beautiful tweet from Nick Szabo saying, Rootstock, the best of both worlds, Bitcoin plus Ethereum. So basically this is how Rootstock works. It is a fork of the Java implementation of Ethereum that was put on top of Bitcoin infrastructure in two ways. So in one way, it uses Bitcoin as native currency. So there's a bridge that can move Bitcoins from the base layer to Rootstock and then move them back to the base layer. There are approximately 2,500 Bitcoin in the sidechain, in the Rootstock sidechain right now. So these are Bitcoins that are not able to be sold in the Bitcoin base layer. So the success of Rootstock implies a higher demand for Bitcoin. So it basically benefits everyone, every Bitcoin holder. It aligns the economic incentives of Bitcoin holders to the success of Rootstock. It also is connected to Bitcoin infrastructure through mining. You know, Ethereum was forced to move to proof of stake because there was no interest from miners to secure Ethereum with the level of hashing power that they needed to secure a global financial system. Rootstock benefits from something merged mining that enables mining pools to secure a secondary blockchain with the same level of security at zero cost. 80% of the fees happening in Rootstock go to the same Bitcoin miners and mining pools that are securing Bitcoin. So Rootstock is increasing the security budget of Bitcoin. This is something that doesn't happen with Liquid, for instance. So in Liquid, the transaction fees go to the federation members. In Rootstock, they go to Bitcoin mining pools. which are not distributing them so far with miners. This is a little bit frustrating. We would want those funds to be distributed to the actual miners, but they claim that they are not that significant yet to bother in that, and they are using those fees to absorb fixed costs. So in the end, somehow the users or the miners benefit from it. So this is the other angle that Rootstock has with Bitcoin. So right now, I think around 80 to 90% of the total Bitcoin hashing power is merged mining Rootstock as well. It's an incredible, insane amount of hashing power securing every block in Rootstock that happens every 30 seconds. And it also helps any developer around the world that is currently building a prediction marketplace, any programmable financial system or platform built on Solana or Ethereum or any other altcoin. They can also port it instantly into Bitcoin infrastructure. So it is a win-win for everyone. Bitcoiners now can build a financial system with endless possibilities in the most permissionless way possible. There's some very interesting features coming up, hopefully this year, using BitBMX. There's a new bridge coming that will make it even more decentralized and permissionless on the Bitcoin Rootstock bridge. And there are incredible solutions. I would like to share some ideas so people can put it into reality. One of the best projects that there are on Rootstock is called Money on Chain. It's a permissionless stablecoin with collateral in Bitcoin. So instead of having treasury bonds as collateral and funding the US government, this is a set of smart contracts that hold Bitcoin as collateral. And you need to have between 4 and 10 times more Bitcoin than the amount of dollars that the smart contract enables to be withdrawn. So there's always over collateralization. There's a passive income for Bitcoiners to provide the liquidity in Bitcoin. And there is a permissionless stable coin that can be minted and unminted directly against a smart contract. This is called Money on Chain. Super, super interesting. There's another project called Tropicus, which is a lending platform natively built on Rootstock, where the plebs can put their sats in collateral and get a fiat loan. So they can do the Sailor playbook, as we were saying before, about Sailor, but for plebs without KYC. And this is something particularly interesting for the Bitcoin circular economies. Many of the members have been accumulating sats for a long time, and they might have some wealth that they need to start a business or to expand their home or to have a surgery, but they don't want to spend their sats because they know they probably won't be able to recover them in the future. So with Tropicus, you can put those sats in collateral. You need to learn and study the margin call issues and make sure that you put way more collateral than the amount of dollars that you are, or stable coins that you are receiving. But having said that, there have been popping up several stories of Bitcoiners that bought their homes and been able for the first time to be homeowners without selling most of their Bitcoin, benefiting from the appreciation of Bitcoin over time and getting a liability or loan in fiat that depreciates over time. So this is another very interesting use case using Rootstock. Another one that I really like is called All or Nothing by the Geyser Fund team. I don't know if you know Geyser Fund. It's one of the crowdsourcing. Yeah, so it's super useful platform used in circular economies where they post their QR codes and post their projects, and people can donate directly to them. But the problem that Geyser had is that they couldn't do a proper crowdfunding in the traditional sense, where you have an amount of money that you're looking for and a time frame that you decide, okay, I'm gonna try to raise $10,000 in 3 months to build this prototype, right? Uh, they were not able to do that because if they would do it, they would have to custody the funds, become money transmitters, and basically have licenses and regulations all around the world to be able to operate like a crowdfunding platform. So crowdfunding is basically only available in the US and central economies. And if you're from Africa, from America, from Southeast Asia, it's very difficult for you to fundraise. And even if you have a great idea and the skills to develop it, you'll fail before you start because you will probably not be able to get the funding from your community, even if you have a community willing to help you. So what they did is that they built that engine on Rootstock. The all or nothing campaign uses Rootstock as the engine where the money is stored. There's a smart contract that tackles time and checks in that time frame whether the amount of sats collected was reached or not. And based on that outcome, at the end of the period, the smart contract sends the funds back to the contributor if the amount was not reached, or sends the funds to the project if the amount has been reached. What's most interesting about this use case is that it has been built in the bolts swap, atomic swaps. So people, users in Geyser are used to make donations in Lightning, and the projects are used to receive the donations in Lightning. So they launched the All or Nothing, which is now live for everyone to submit and also support projects. Check Geyser Geyser website, you will find it. But basically, what they did is you send money through Lightning. It gets converted through bolts into RBTC, which are bitcoins on Rootstock, but without the user knowing or without adding any complexity to the user. The RBTC are locked in the smart contract. The whole business logic happens. And then at the end of the process, the RBTC are sent through bolts, through Lightning, either to the donor or to the project. So it's a very incredible use case that enables a new functionality, completely permissionless, non-custodial, and trust minimized for Bitcoin to do crowdfunding, but without adding the need to a user to have a Rootstock account or a Rootstock wallet directly from Lightning. So connecting these L2s. And in the final project I would like to mention, it's a new one that is just being launched. It was developed in El Salvador. I think Berlin in El Salvador was the first circular economy to test this technology, which is called bittasker.com. It's a marketplace for jobs and regular household works. So if you need a carpenter, or you need a plumber, or you need a babysitter, or you need a hairdresser, any kind of manual job that usually people need all the time and that are consumed locally within your community, you can post those jobs in this marketplace. There's an escrow built on Rootstock. Again, the services are paid and cashed on Lightning, but the engine is built on Rootstock. So there's an escrow where the money gets stocked until the provider sends a proof that either the wall was painted or the baby was taken care of or the haircut was done. And then if both agree, the funds get released. And if there is a disagreement, then there's a dispute resolution mechanism that the project leaders do. So that's another use case that it is also very interesting because all the communications are done through Nostr. And I think the payments are integrated through Liquid. So you have the whole Bitcoin infrastructure ecosystem operating beautifully together to create these marketplaces so people keep on consuming locally and making sure that those sats circulate as many times as possible within the economy. So these are some of the most exciting projects that have been built on Rootstock, and I'm starting to see a lot of excitement around Rootstock. I think Bitcoiners have realized that they can build whatever they want. They can go shopping into other altcoins, any prediction market, any decentralized exchange, anything that they want can be easily forked and poured into Rootstock and secure by Bitcoin infrastructure using Bitcoin as native currency. Through many years, Bitcoiners have been very reluctant to build stuff on Bitcoin because we were very limited by the Bitcoin script and the kind of things that we were doing. And many of the solutions built on top of Bitcoin were completely centralized, company based with CEOs and regulations. And I think like there's a lion that is being awakened now, where developers and Bitcoiners can program whatever they want. So yeah, I think 2026 is going to be a very interesting for the Rootstock and Bitcoin ecosystem.
It really is. And I'm glad that you touched a few things, because a lot of the resistance, I guess you would say, from Bitcoiners was a little misunderstanding, a little misconception that somehow these builders, whether it's Rootstock or even Lightning for that matter, is somehow detracting from Bitcoin. But as adoption comes, more people come into it and they see the value in Bitcoin, what they can do, solve their local problems. We're seeing quite the opposite. More people are interested in Bitcoin as opposed to fewer. And I think it was really interesting that you also stated the fact that in order to interact and do these things on Rootstock, that Bitcoin is actually locked. So in many ways, these are hodlers that they just happen to be building and doing all sorts of interesting things. I think that's something that's a little bit disconnected from the average person that might hear, oh, you're doing all these things using Bitcoin, but you're using Rootstock. Well, that's not helping Bitcoin. So I think that was a very good clarification for people to understand, and you can research that, see exactly how Bitcoin is locked and held in a wallet in order to do all these things on Rootstock. I think is really important to explore. And I'll definitely be doing more of the technical diggings myself. But then also, I think it's just really important too that you highlighted all those different simple things like finding a plumber or whatever it might be, because in certain areas, like that is so easy to do. But trust me, once you move outside the US and the EU, certain areas, finding those things, it's a little bit difficult, especially if you're new in the area. It's most of the world operates on who you know, and it's like very old school with like tribes, and like there's a chief that kind of is the gatekeeper to that community. So having these little platforms, if you will, really does improve local communities. And of course, at the same time too, having them become Bitcoiners and look at the greater infrastructure and everything. But I just think that's just really, really cool that you highlighted practical things, how they're solving problems. And I know certain times people might get really emotional about people spending their Bitcoin or using other technologies and so forth. But there's just certain things that you could not do on Bitcoin. I'm glad you highlighted that. The reason why a lot of developers and coders ended up on Ethereum is because they just didn't have the technical support in order to do what they wanted to do. They might be Bitcoiners, but they ended up building on Ethereum because they couldn't do it on Bitcoin. But now they do have that opportunity. So I'm personally excited to see where we go with all of these different things. Again, the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is you can choose how you want to interact with the network, how you want to use your sats, and no one is forced into adopting a certain way of thinking. You don't like it? Cool. Don't use it. Go find what solves your problems, what you like, and where you find the interest and value, and use it in that way. And I think that is a freedom that is offered within Bitcoin that is not offered in the traditional financial rails and financial system whatsoever. It's almost like whatever the biggest party says, that's what goes. But in Bitcoin, it's not so. The more creative person can take a completely different route, and they might find that, wow, I'm the only person with this interest. I'm the only one that's using this thing. And that's cool. Then move on to the next thing, or solve your own problem with it, and you're the only one using it. That's okay too. So I think that's just really beautiful. So, with the last few minutes or so, the last, highlights, call to actions, you gave us amazing things to go check out. And of course, we're looking forward to that second book, the conference coming up, and all those things. Is there anything that you'd really like to leave us with as we are at the top of the hour. I can't believe we blew through an hour so quickly. And that was a great conversation. And I think you left us with some amazing things that we probably never heard or are aware of because we just don't live in those regions. So is there anything else that you'd like to kind of leave us with? The last, I guess you'd say, charge, call to action to check out what's going on and what to look forward to.
So I'm very excited to keep on learning about these projects. We are finishing now a new extra chapter about Motive Peru. It's the circular economy in the Andes in Peru. We are going to add a new chapter to the book that is going to be sold in Peru. So people visit Motive, they will be able to buy our book, including the Peruvian chapter. Uh, for instance, there they are teaching how to use lining to women in Quechua. So women that don't even speak Spanish using an app that's in English just by remembering how to touch the buttons, uh, and they are using lining. People that don't even know how to write to read in Spanish, uh, using Bitcoin for everyday payments. So this story is coming soon. We are also excited about launching the book in Hindi, hopefully with the help of our friend Karan, who is getting, I think, more than 30 meetups in India. Imagine when we unleash the potential of Indian developers to build a financial system on top of Bitcoin with the level of necessity that they have about digital payments in India and that part of the world. So that also keeps me very excited. We are going to be participating in the South African adopting conference, and then the travel that Bitcoin Ecasi is organizing across 5 different circular economies in South Africa. I encourage everyone willing to go to South Africa to get to know Ekasi, to check the trip. It's a unique opportunity to visit so many different circular economies in one go. Um, and we're going to be also participating in the International Bitcoin Circular Economy Summit happening in El Salvador at the end of January, right before Plan E in El Salvador. Uh, it is very important, and my personal favorite recommendation to encourage everyone to visit Bitcoin Circular Economies. They are more than just proof of concepts. They are more than just incredible social projects. In my opinion, they are a tiny look into how the future would look like. Um, we are accelerating the pace into Bitcoin or hyper Bitcoinization or Bitcoin adoption. Uh, you will see it in Africa first, you will see it in Latin America, and as soon as we continue seeing the kind of surveillance and push for CBDCs and government control that we're seeing in Europe and in other parts of the world, we are also going to see a rapid adoption of Bitcoin everywhere. And Bitcoin circular economies clearly represent to me the most human side of Bitcoin, even for those friends or your no coiner uncle who fights you in every family dinner. I think giving them or showing them the book and introducing him or her to Bitcoin circular economies will present them the most human side of Bitcoin, beyond the anti-government, beyond the financial speculative side of Bitcoin or the technological dimension. It's just the human dimension, how it's helping people who have been failed by the fiat system today, and they are having a better living and improving their community lives through Bitcoin today. So it's by far, in my opinion, the most inspiring dimension of Bitcoin happening now is the actual grassroots movement that keeps on growing beyond the price. It goes like even the hash rate can come down a little bit when price goes down. The adoption in circular economies is always growing because fiat is always failing, and that's where it's on the edges where the failures of the fiat system are more evident, and that's where Bitcoin is thriving. I invite everyone to learn more about Bitcoin circular economies and to visit as many circular economies as possible. I'm going to be also visiting Lago Bitcoin after my trip to El Salvador in Guatemala. That's the cover of the book, which, by the way, we can explain that the idea of the cover is with Bitcoin Ikasi in the center, one of the poorest Bitcoin circular economy in the world, that is representing these sunrise of hope that Bitcoin adoption brings to all these communities, from Bitcoineta and the newspaper in El Salvador, to the African surfer and the meditating Costa Rican in their community, the Bitcoin boat from Lago Bitcoin, and the kite surfer and the Bitcoin ice machine from Praia Bitcoin in Brazil. So we see every single one of these communities as a sunrise of hope, bringing Bitcoin education, Bitcoin adoption, and prosperity to other communities, and invite everyone to experience this by themselves.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. And I am excited for the future of Bitcoin and the amazing things that you will be doing, not just in Latin America and Africa, but the whole world in general, because the whole world can benefit from Bitcoin adoption and all the amazing things that are being built here. So, Gabriel, my friend, I absolutely appreciate the time that you have spent with us, highlighting these various things. And I look forward to having more spaces, more streams and videos and things in the future where we are going to collaborate. And hopefully the Wolf Bitcoin team, we can hop down to one of these conferences with you in person, shake hands, get some content out, and just share some light on all the amazing things that's happening around the world. So I really appreciate you, my friend. And we're looking forward to that second book and all the other amazing things that's happening. And again, those of you that tuned in with us, really appreciate you. And if you found this interesting in any way possible, share this out, highlight whatever it is that you want to be highlighted to your friends. Especially, I'm pretty sure there were some misunderstandings that were cleared up with this whole presentation, or discussion, I should say. So really appreciate you all. And we look forward to the amazing things. And Gabriel, have a wonderful day, my friend. And we look forward to everything that we will be doing in the future.
Ciao. Thank you.